Hey guys, for this video I'm going to be doing a movie review of The Consequences of Love. It's an Italian film. When I watched it, I knew nothing about it. It's one of those 1001 movies to watch before you die, and so I just chose it at random and watched it. I'll just go into the story first and then I'll give my thoughts after. So the story, it follows Tita di Girolamo. Probably butchered that. I'm not sure if Italian names are pronounced the same, was it phonetically? Is that what you call it? Anyways. Yeah, he lives in a hotel in Switzerland. He's lived there for about like the last eight years or so. So each day he has the same exact routine. He gets dressed, goes down to eat breakfast, hangs out in the lobby of the hotel, people watches, just wanders around. And there is an employee there, a woman, Sophia, who greets him every day, but he routinely ignores her. He never, engages in conversation. And she eventually calls him out for it. I believe she implies that he's a snob. He thinks he's better than her. And so he doesn't really acknowledge that. He still ignores her. Then, after that, he goes in the evening and plays Grabber. It's a game with this married couple. They used to be the owners of the hotel that he's living in, but they went bankrupt and they had to sell off their possessions to pay to live in the hotel. And the older man, he is terrified of dying in the hotel, and so he wants to sell the painting of his wife's mother's painting, and so that they can leave the hotel and the rest of her life, I guess, somewhere else. But his wife refuses to do it. And he knows this because he has insomnia, Tita. He has insomnia, so he'll listen at the door to their conversation, and, he can't sleep, and so he'll just do whatever. And the big mystery of this movie, I think, the biggest appeal is the kind of mystery to it. It's Tita, you don't know for like half the movie what his job is. Nobody knows, not even the manager of the hotel. He just knows that Tita will pay the money, the exact change. He's never late, and he never says what he does. And so you eventually do learn what he does, because there's a woman who, I don't know how often it is, I think like once a week, once a month. Anyway, she leaves a briefcase. And so he takes that briefcase to a Swiss bank and deposits the money from that briefcase into the bank. And it's revealed that he's actually a middleman. I don't know what you would call him, but he deposits deposits money for the Mafia into a bank. So the woman will leave the money and he'll take the money and then put it into the bank. And the reason for why he does this, apparently, like, I don't know, a few years ago, like at least 8 years ago, I'm assuming, he was an investor and ended up losing the Mafia a shit ton of money. And so I guess as punishment, he now has to kind of be the middleman for them. So he deposits their money into, their bank accounts. And that's essentially what he does. And, so it's fairly, like, I guess you could say boring life, and obviously, I'm sure, ended up impacting his relationship with his family, because he does call them, but his wife is very distant, and his children don't care about him. they'll pretty much not want to talk to him. And so it kind of, say, probably ruined his life, if you will. You know, around this time, there are two men who come to his apartment, and they turn out to be members of the Mafia. They're hitmen, and they're wanting to use his apartment as a base while they kill someone. And so, yeah, and so we see kind of that, and they end up, like I said, killing someone. And so they'll play a part later in the movie, but in the meantime, his Tita's stepbrother ends up showing up, and he's kind of more like a free spirit, if you will. And he learns that Tita is interested in Sophia, but he's afraid that Sophia was kind of like ruin his like boring, mundane life, and so he's shy, and he doesn't want to, possibly ruin his life, I guess. And so eventually his stepbrother is able to convince him, and so he does eventually talk to Sophia, and they end up going, and he ends up buying her some clothing, and so it's not really a sexual relationship. They don't ever have sex in the movie. It's more like a, I guess, romantic relationship, but yeah. And then we see again him going to the bank, but this time when the employees count the money, they discover that about $100,000. What is it called? I'm assuming that's like the Italian currency. I don't know what that's called, but like 100,000 of that currency is missing. And he threatens to close the account, and so the manager lies and says that they miscounted, and so there is actually that $100,000 there, and so they kind of brush it under the rug because they're worried about them shutting the account, losing all the money, but also they're afraid of the Mafia, and so. But yeah, it's then revealed that Tita is the one who stole the money. He used the money to buy a car for Sophia. And at first she's kind of, I won't say disgusted, but I guess disappointed. Until she kind of learned what he did to get it for her. And so she's more, I guess, receptive. Because he, I guess, thinks that he might actually care for her. I don't know. And then this was kind of, I think, where the hitmen come into play, because they see the woman, or they find the briefcase that the woman have left in his apartment, and they take the briefcase. They don't kill him. They decide not to kill him, and they just leave with the briefcase. And he panics, and he calls his contact in the Mafia, and the contact tells him to come to Italy to explain it to the Don. I think that's what they're called, the head honcho. But he refuses. He doesn't want to come for about 2 days, because Sophia has said that she would spend his 50th birthday the next day with him. And so, but Sophia doesn't show, and so he ends up deciding to go ahead and go to Italy. Well, it turns out that Sophia had been driving her car, the car that he'd gotten her, and she'd gotten into an accident, and she was in the hospital, so she could not, join him. But he thinks that she doesn't love him, and so I guess you say just abandoned him, and so she decides to go to Italy. Well, he finally gets to Italy, and he's confronted by the Don, and it's revealed that he was able to get the money, And so he was able to get ahead of the hitmen, get into their car, and kill them before they left with the money. And so he has the money. But it's revealed that he does not want to give the money to the Don. He says that they ruined his life. They stole his life from him. And so he doesn't want to give the money to him. And so, they keep trying to get him to tell them where it is, but he refuses. And so they eventually take him out into the desert, where there's a crane and a vat of cement. And they slowly lower him into the vat of cement. And his last thought is of his friend. What is his name? I forgot his name, but yeah, it's a friend, his childhood friend, and he believes his childhood friend loves him, and his friend is like this electrician in the Alps. And so the last scene is of him, of his friend. He's doing, on this pole, on the telephone pole in the Alps, and you kind of get this pause where, he just pauses, and you kind of assume that he's thinking about Tita, just as he's like dying. And so kind of showing that at least someone loved him. Obviously, Sophia didn't abandon him. She just, she couldn't make it. So, and, after all that, it's revealed that the money, he had left it for the older couple. The wife had told him, before this happened, that she was going to sell the painting so that her husband, we could get her husband out of there, because, she didn't want him to die there. And so he ends up giving them the money so they didn't have to sell the painting, and they're able to actually, leave the hotel. And so I think that was everything that happened in the movie. I think I got it all. There was a question I had. I was wondering if he had not thought that Sophia had abandoned him, would he have given the money to the Mafia? Is that kind of what the lesson of the movie is? In his last act, I guess selfless act, he ends up, I guess, improving someone's life, helping someone. Maybe he thought that, he wanted to make a difference. He didn't feel like anybody loved him, or just, he wanted to I guess he wanted someone to remember him. I don't know. That was just kind of a thought I had. But the movie itself, it wasn't my cup of tea. I tend to go for sci-fi or horror. And so I will say that it did keep me watching. I was interested to see what his job was and kind of what the ending would be. I won't watch it again, but I watched it. So I actually looked up, and there isn't much background information on the movie. Just that it was written and directed by Paolo Sorrentino. I'm assuming he's probably a popular Italian director. It starred Tony Servillo. It won 5 David D. Don. I can't even say it. I'm assuming it's the Oscar equivalent of Italian equivalent of the Academy Awards. And the actor Tony, he was praised for his acting in this movie, in which I will admit his is kind of the ones I remember the most. His acting. Everyone else was pretty much just, I don't remember much, or at least I don't have that big of an impression on them. So But it was also noted, this movie was praised for its extremely stylish cinematography and soundtrack. The cinematography, I didn't really notice it again. There's only just like at the beginning where he's like, there's this escalator and, there's like it just goes straight down, the hall. And so he's just standing on the escalator as it's moving down this long hallway. And so that's kind of the first shot we have. And then the other one that I think it's most known for is when he ends up doing, one thing I missed. He does heroin like every week. Every Wednesday at 10 he does heroin. And there's this one shot in which he starts laying down, but it does like a 180 shot over him as he's laying down. And so, yeah, that's kind of one of the shots that was praised in this movie, and that's the one I remember the most. But yeah, other than that, I don't really remember much when it comes to cinematography or soundtrack. It wasn't, not everybody loved it. There were some critics, as there typically is. Richard M. Parton at Chicago Reader, he says that the director's often playful assault on genre conventions is sabotaged by an ostentatious visual style that is little more than a bag of empty tricks. So I guess you could say that he just tried to, be very visually stunning, but this critic didn't think that he, it was, I guess, good. But the critics have also claimed the film's tracking shots and opening sequence, which I just mentioned, so yeah. So that was my reaction to The Consequences of Love. It was just, I guess it just wasn't my cup of tea. And but if it sounds interesting to you, I would go ahead and watch it. I'm sure you enjoy it. Obviously, it's essentially about a man who falls in love, and we're going to see essentially the consequences of that love. So his actions ultimately leads to him dying. So, but if you did like this video, give it a like, subscribe to get notifications for all the videos I'll be doing. You guys have a nice night. Stay safe out there. I'll talk to you later.